This day every time when the Bills introduce a new head coach. This happens to be Joe Brady, who was already on their staff. It's been a while since the Bills have gone that route. But we know that they have, and Brady met with the media earlier today. Sal Capaccio was seen at the scene and joins us now here on the West Her Hotline. I liked Sal's question. I think maybe the best of all the questions.
Oh, look, all right.
Because he caught the continuing use of the word alignment, which is just not like a typical press conference football word.
Right.
Unless we're talking about actually lining up on the field. This emphasis, point of emphasis in 2026, alignment. Sal, were you satisfied with how that was answered for you?
I mean, I wish that I would have got more like in depth. Like you always want more, like give me the juicy stuff, right? From that aspect. Sure, I understand. I understand why they answered it the way they did, and to the degree of satisfaction that I could expect, I guess I would say yes. And I said to you guys, expect to hear the word collaboration a lot. We didn't get that as much. We did get that a couple times, I think, today. It was alignment was the key buzz phrase, but a word. But that really stemmed from last week and hearing that. And every time we had heard things about Sean McDermott and from the press conference last Wednesday, and then Joe Brady getting hired through the national media, that he understands how alignment of the personnel and coaching and all that kind of stuff. I think that word was used several times, so I wanted to kind of ask about that. What does that look like? What does that mean? It's one thing to have your own perception of what we all think it means, but can you explain to fans, what does it mean when you're in alignment? And the first thing that Joe Brady said was, well, it doesn't mean you always agree, which is right. And Sean McDermott would always say that. You can have healthy disagreements. You want to have that. But it's really about being in alignment on kind of every little piece of how you want to do the operation, even not just player personnel. It's how to conduct practices. It's how to manage injuries. That's where they took the answer. I was more focused on the personnel part, but I appreciate and respect that they were talking more about every single part of the organization and being in alignment.
How much, if at all, were you holding your breath when Brady started talking? Because I thought for a few minutes there, maybe a few minutes is too much, but he was really emotional and was able to control it. And I sympathize because my emotions get the better of me often enough. I'm sure plenty of our audience has heard it. And I don't just mean yelling and screaming. I mean getting really emotional, like crying, trying to talk about something that means a lot to me or I know means a lot to the audience or whatever. And I was watching like, oh, dude, please just get through it. Like, don't cry thanking these people for giving you this job, because I feel like we'll never stop talking about that if that happens. And he managed to. I just wonder what it was like being in the room for that.
Yeah, Joe is a really high energy guy. We've talked about that positivity. It didn't surprise me that he got a little emotional like that, pretty emotional like that. But at the same time, when that starts happening, you start to wonder, like, okay, like, is he going to be able to kind of get to everything else we need to get to here? Because it could be pretty overwhelming here in this room. And I felt that weight as well. But, I also thought, I'll say this, he came off very genuine to me.
Yeah.
And when I say that, I'm going to say it this way to people.
Right.
That's right. I'm going to say this to people.
Walk that line that tightly, right? If you can be, like, on the verge but not let it get away from you, I think that comes across as sincere, and that's to his credit.
100%. And I would say to a lot of people, this was their first real introduction, no pun intended, to Joe Brady, right? I mean, like, how many people maybe you have a fan out there that watches the Monday press conference via the Bills Twitter feed, right? Where Joe Brady, once a week, we talk to Joe Brady and Bobby Babich. That's it. You don't really hear from him ever other than that, maybe during the offseason a couple times. The majority of fans, really, of Bills fans, they don't really hear from Joe Brady. They might hear a soundbite from him. They might see something on social media. I've been in the same room with Joe Brady many times. I've listened to Joe Brady. I've talked with him. I've had conversations on the record, off the record, in these rooms, in different settings with him. And I can tell you what I saw today from Joe Brady was Joe Brady. He was genuine. That was him up there. And he is not the most polished speaker in the world, but I thought today he was even more polished than I've ever really kind of heard him, because I thought that that genuineness of him came through very well.
I said earlier, it doesn't surprise me listening today that he would do a good interview. I mean, interviewing for the job.
Yeah.
because, I mean, he's tall, he's got that advantage, he's got the good name, the good face, the whole thing. But he's also, like, he sort of says everything to every question, kind of covers all the bases. I think he just intuitively knows to do that. And, I mean, that's not enough when you're in that setting, I'm sure. There's probably a combination here, Sal. If I'm a candidate and this is like the pinnacle of my career, if I get this job, not only is it I'm in the club forever, but I have Alan, I've got a great setup here. There's probably a combination of this is what I want to do and this is what I know you want me to do, because they're familiar with each other, and some kind of, you maybe make some compromises with yourself, like, well, whatever it is, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday preparation stuff, when they eat, all the kind of details we never talk about. I think he probably knew his audience. Alan's in the room, the owner, the GM, and was able to, I don't mean this as a negative, but was able to really ultimately tell them what they wanted to hear.
Sure. I thought it was interesting on this note, Mike, and because what you said is probably right in that regard. I don't think, again, and I know you're not saying this, I don't think it was anything fake. He's being genuine. But the things that they wanted to hear are part of why he got the job, right? Because he says things that resonate with them. There's no doubt. And what I thought was really interesting, and I didn't know this going into this process and learning about this, was Brandon Beane saying that when they interviewed Joe Brady, they basically made it as let's say we never now you can't really do this because you do know the person, right? But we want to start from scratch and as if we've never met you. We don't know you. You're coming in here blind and we don't know anything about you, just like everybody else. Like, to me, my perception of these interviews is when you bring in somebody who's already been on your staff for the last 4 years, been your offensive play caller for the last 2+ years, they come in, you're kind of starting from there, which is, okay, let's build upon what you've learned this. What would you change? You know this. What do you think about this? That's not what they did here. What they did here was say, hey, your name's Joe Brady. My name's Brandon Beane. Nice to meet you. Let's talk about you as a football coach. Where do you come from? What do you believe in? I thought that was super interesting, actually. And listen, Brandon Beane doubled down on that later on when he spoke with us after by saying, like, he learned so much about like the process of this because he had only been – this is his first time doing this, right, as a GM. He had been in the room a couple of times when it had happened before, but not – or you shouldn't even say been in the room. He was on the outside of the process a little bit helping out in Carolina. But this is the first time. So he wanted to make sure he did it this way because he wanted to learn as much as he could about the process and the candidates.
Yeah, I wondered if that got – so are you married? Do you have kids? Like, like how far did that extend? Did they did they go the whole way on that? Yeah, I mean, interesting. I think we should talk about, because I don't know how much it's only been on social media really, the second round of conversation you got to have with Brady with some reporters after he came back out, and that's where I didn't know this until you texted me and Zach told me kind of simultaneously, like this Keon Coleman comments and all this. Mike and I were like, I don't remember from the news conference when did this happen. So I don't know, that was that the most notable thing that came out of that part, because I thought it was pretty emphatic. It was more than just, he's on the team, he's a valued guy, we got to see if we can develop him, yada, yada. I mean, you got Brady telling you he stood on the table for him and that being his head coach is going to be the best thing that ever happened to the guy.
He did. It was notable, and obviously, I think there was a question about Keon during the press conference as well. I think if I remember right, maybe to Josh. Right, there was a question about Josh, and there was the question there. So I can't remember about if it was the press conference itself, but yes, both gave high endorsements to him. And what happened was, just so everybody understands, we found out today we would get Josh Allen after the main press conference. They said, okay, he's going to be available as well. Remember, we had been told last week Josh would speak to the media once the hire was made. Well, that was today. We knew that. We saw him on crutches when he walked into the press conference, and then, again, he met with us in the media room. Well, then we're all done, and a lot of us in the media are sitting around and, doing the transcripts and writing our stories. And then Joe Brady came back out, and this was kind of not known that this was going to happen, and he came back out so he could meet with us individually more, to have a little more one-on-one time, if you will, even though there's, 20 people in the room for the local media. And one of the questions was about Keon and what was said last week. And yes, he backed him and said the best thing for Keon Coleman is me being his head coach. And the way I took that was, I'm going to do, I know what he can do. I have seen it. I wanted him on this team, and I'm going to do everything I can in my power to see him succeed. Like, that's the way I took this. And I would also say, though, that Joe Brady, since the day that he got here, every single week he talked to us, including today and up through today, he always has taken like accountability for what has gone wrong with the offense and saying it's on me. I have to do a better job. Even so much as questions about, hey, the last couple of years, your offense 3 years has had the ball late and not able to score a touchdown in the playoffs. And he takes accountability for that. What can I do better? I didn't do enough in those situations. So to me, what he's doing is the same thing here with Keon, which is I'm going to take accountability and say, I'm the guy in charge of the offense. He hasn't developed the right way. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to see this through because I'm his head coach and we're going to do this together. That's the way I took that.
That's the kind of answer that will come to bug me about him because, like, just be a little bit specific. When coaches say it's up to me, what's an example of how it's up to you? Like, what would he have done differently in Denver? You know, any particular thing would be interesting to know that goes beyond just, yeah, my fault. Because you can be sincere about that, but it really doesn't do anything for us. You know, it's just like you're telling us that you recognize that you're not, blameless in any kind of situation. He did go as far today. I mean, this was an eye roll for me to say, when they play well, it's because of them. When we fail, it's because of me. Like, oh, geez, really? I do like Sal. I think we all did that he brought up McDermott and talked about him the way that he did. That was overdue from last week. And again, sincere, genuine, no reason not to think so today. So at least that was covered today. So that's good.
Yeah, for sure. He really gave a lot of praise to Sean McDermott. Said he learned a lot under him. He thanked him for the opportunity to, have him in Buffalo and learned under him. And he said he has a lot of love for him. And the foundation that Sean McDermott set here is real and it matters. And obviously he has his own vision and his new vision, his new mentality, all those kinds of things. But a lot of what he learned to get to this point was through Sean McDermott. He knows that a lot of these players on this team love Sean McDermott, and they've been here through Sean McDermott and his culture. And that's going to be important to him to make sure that he connects with those players to know that that is all still very real and a part of what they're about.
I want to ask you a follow-up on this. I don't know if you would say the same here. When he was starting to lose his composure early on, getting choked up, the room kind of clapped for him. I'm guessing it wasn't the media doing that, but the players who were there or family, staff, what have you. Then when he got done with McDermott, he paused, and I thought there would be applause again, like that the players or the people who worked there would have joined him in that mess. And there was dead silence. I don't know if that is interesting to you. When he talked about defense, maybe this is the most we got, and I don't know how much it was, about him having a different vision. I'm curious for what you thought about how he talked about wanting to be different on defense.
Versatile like they are on offense. That was kind of what stood out. But I think the Bills have always had the philosophy of being versatile. At least I will say this, and I think Sean McDermott does too. I shouldn't say it's only Beane. I do believe that Brandon Beane has made it a point to get versatile players. You guys would probably agree. You go back to, positionless, right? We've talked about this for many years. Like, it's become positionless. There's no more free and strong safety. These guys can play in the box. They can play center field. You can play nickel. You can play outside. Michael Hoyt can play on the edge. You can play linebacker. So I do think that the Bills have had this vision anyway under this regime to be very versatile. Joe Brady backed that up today with how he wants the defense to operate, which is to be versatile in all situations with personnel and be able to, have the ability to have guys play in any situation just by putting them in different spots. So I think that was a bit of a theme that came out of today. Aggressiveness, obviously, but I didn't need him to tell me aggressive because I've seen the names that have been reported. We've talked about this. Jim Leonard, Raheem Morris, right? Jim Schwartz, not necessarily reported, but I think that that's a name that could resonate. And to me, that is just screaming the Bills want to be a more aggressive team schematically than they've been on defense over the last 9 years.
Yeah. Any idea on a timeline there? I imagine they don't want to drag their feet for too long. The Schwartz thing still could be complicated if they end up actually being interested in him because of his situation with Cleveland.
Also, he left here in somewhat similar circumstances when they hired Rex Ryan, did he not? Like, was he equally miffed by that? I mean, maybe that's I don't know how he feels about the possible return. Sorry,
It's a good
Bulldog,
question. I don't know. I mean, time heals some things, right? I mean,
he wants to work.
Aaron, yeah, right. I mean, we'll see. And it's a good question, but Aaron Cromer was here under Rex, and then he came back under Sean McDermott. Not saying that it was the same situation, but guys do leave and then come back in different situations.
No, right. Schwartz had been a previous NFL head coach, though, and they went and hired a defensive coach over him, and their defense was great when he was here, mostly. So
yeah, for sure. And they did switch. I mean, I don't know about scheme necessarily, but when they hired who did bring me back now, Mike? Schwartz was under Marone, right?
Yeah, and then they were great. And when Rex showed up, he said, we're going to be better. They were second or third, and we'll be first or something.
I think that's obviously, and I'm sure you're right. Your point is right. You leave because, okay, I didn't get the head coaching job or whatever, but obviously once Rex comes in, he's not going to keep on Jim Schwartz.
Right.
That's clashing of egos and defensive styles,
for sure.
Right?
Mike
no
Pettin
doubt about that. Yeah, Mike Pettin. I was thinking about him today, too. Okay, so no timeline necessarily. What he did say was, I don't want to rush it. I want to get the right guy, right? It's more important to get the right guy, but we all recognize here time is of the essence. I mean, we see what's happening. Guys are getting jobs. These jobs are filling up around the league. We don't know the situation with Jim Schwartz. It feels to me like there's going to be some sort of divorce there with him in Cleveland in some way, shape, or form. Does that take a team come calling and trading him a draft pick? I don't know. Does that take them just saying, okay, that's it. We don't want a disgruntled employee here. You're out of your contract or whatever. You can buy yourself out. I don't know. Whatever that is, it feels like it. I still think Jim Leonard is squarely in the mix, but now he's interviewing in Baltimore. Raheem Morris's name is out there. We'll see where that goes. That being said, the Bills did hire today. It looks like, I don't think it's official from the team yet. It has been reported they are going to hire Pat Meyer as their offensive line coach. So that's one that they get, brought in that's very important because Aaron Cromer did an excellent job, I thought, with this particular offensive line. And if you look at Pat Meyer's history, he did work with Joe Brady, but what I'm told is really a big reason why he is being hired is because he worked under Aaron Cromer here in Buffalo, and a lot of his teaching and a lot of his style is from Cromer and will translate well to how the Bills' current offensive line has been taught, if that makes sense, over the last few years. So that there's some familiarity, if not continuity, with that style. Even though it's not the same person, it's the same way of teaching and language.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I might guess it happens really soon. Beane said about, maybe in name Clint Kubiak, other candidates that are not available.
Right.
That he didn't think it was fair to anybody, to the coach having to wait to put a staff together and to the team. So maybe they move fast here.
I agree, and I respect that point. It's probably true. Now, if you're Clint Kubiak and you get the Raiders job, after the Super Bowl, then you are behind. You're behind, hiring. But again, without even having an interview, that puts you even a little further behind, and maybe he can start to put his staff together. We've seen that before where we know guys are in the Super Bowl coaching, but they're taking a job. In this case, it would have been you can't even talk to the Bills. How do they even know they truly want you until that happens? And I think that does create a little bit of a challenging circumstance, if you will. And yeah, it's probably not fair, but a lot of these guys, look, I don't think Joe Brady's going to get probably everybody he wants. He just got the job. There's people that are on staff. Sean McDermott had to wait a year. Sean McDermott's first year as a coach, he had Rick Dennison as his offensive coordinator. He had Juan Castillo as his offensive line coach, who was a defensive coordinator at one point. He had a lot of guys on staff that, Leslie Frazier, obviously, I think he was very smart to hire him. He had a very veteran coaching staff because he wanted a lot of guys around him that, had been there before. But it took him a year or two to really get guys that he wanted on staff.
I wonder, I've been thinking about this since Sunday. Brady did the NFC Championship game, so he's in Seattle. He's a part owner of the Raiders. I wonder if he found some time alone with Kubiak to sort of, hey, well, so what I'm getting to here is maybe even though they're behind timeline-wise and everybody's taking jobs, if the fix is in, maybe Kubiak knows he's going there and can tell guys, don't take another job. You're coming with me to Vegas.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't doubt that at all if that's the case, and we don't know these contract situations, but absolutely, Bulldog. I mean, the coaching life, I think about these guys sometimes and just they're such at the whim of what happens above them, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know this when I'm thinking today about Bobby Babich, who's been here for 9 years under Sean McDermott. His dad's a lifetime coach who just retired a few years ago. And I just found myself thinking about Bobby today. And I don't know this. I haven't talked to Bobby, but did he know? Did he not know? Was it like, hey, Sean McDermott gets fired, and then it's like, well, guess what? That means we're going to go in a totally new direction on defense. Go find a job. I mean, that's the life that these coaches live a lot of times.
Well, there should be more news soon enough on the staff stuff. Sal, thanks for this. We'll talk again soon.
All right, guys, you got it. Thanks.